No. That's not how it works. That person's authoritarian. Authoritarianism is an official parenting style. Authoritarian is the parenting style and the ideology of the narcissist. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, for authoritarianism, the only person that matters to an authoritarian is the authoritarian themselves. It literally is the ideology of narcissism. Because again, who is a narcissist? A narcissist puts themselves above everyone, including God. Because to the narcissist, they believe that they are gods. And why would you not serve a god? That ideology led to development of what they call the divine right of kings, which was an ideology that was coined starting roughly back in the medieval era, though this belief system can be traced back to antiquity, from the time of which humanity changed from a purely nomadic style to an agrarian one, in which property rights became a thing. Legacy inheritances became a thing as humans created a system where they didn't share the land anymore. Now they owned it. So if you're dealing with someone who never wants to be held accountable for their actions, that's authoritarianism. If you are with someone who doesn't show loyalty to you, but expects you to be loyal to them, that's an authoritarian. It is a top-down style of leadership or rulership, because all of the focus of power and the attention and the axis of energy lies at the top. It never comes down. And the sad thing with authoritarianism is that authoritarianism is born out of trauma. It requires traumatized people to function. It requires traumatized people for it to operate, because it's based off a lack of empathy. The authoritarian has no empathy for whom they believe are inferior to them. And the first people who are inferior to an authoritarian are who? Typically their kids. And that's where the cycle begins, because the authoritarian does not place their child above them as an authoritative parenting would. And in terms of childhood development and childhood psychology, the child is best served by being at the center of attention. Your job as a parent is to service, lead, and guide and protect your child. An authoritarian is not interested in that. Authoritarians don't have empathy. And for anybody whom they believe are beneath them, they have no respect or empathy. You're just an object. You are a lesser creature. And so when you bring a person into the world who is treated like an object or a creature, that person will grow up simply by that activity to be incredibly traumatized, because we're not objects and we're not creatures. We're humans with the ability to think and dream and reason and imagine. And every human spirit demands, whether the spirit knows it or not, respect and equality, because the essence, the spirit of humanity is the same. The blood is the same. And again, authoritarians can't believe that. They don't believe that, which is what explains all of their behavior. It explains why a father can sell his daughter off to someone who is a known rapist, right? A father can be okay with their children being abused in church, because to an authoritarian who worships God, well, the pastor is supposed to be the real world physical representation of whom can interpret God's word. So you can't stand up against him. You can't complain about what they do. So they're allowed to terrorize and abuse and sodomize and destroy innocents whenever they can, because again, to them, children are creatures, lesser beings that are here just to serve and amuse and to be used at the pleasure of the adults. There is no respect or desire to do anything for the child. Now think about real world examples of people who act like that. There tends to be a lot of them in corporate government sectors and also clergy. Think about the last time you had a boss who treated you like you were an object, treated you like you were a tool, who just wanted to use you, and when you were done or damaged, just threw you away, didn't care, could go to sleep at night with no issue. That's an authoritarian. They simply don't care. That process makes them incredibly weak and fragile as a result. Anything can scare or disturb an authoritarian because of that inherent weakness, because that they were not invested in when they were children. They were not given empathy and respect as children. They were not taught to empathize and respect and love the world because they can't. Authoritarianism produces broken people. They're broken. Think about someone who would allow you to run into a burning building to save someone, but who cares so little about you as a human being that they would not do their job and stand on the outside and keep the door open, for example. You're just an object. You're just a tool. Why should we care if they make it out of that building alive? Could you imagine serving in a fire team where the fire chief is like that? Don't care if firefighters make it in or out of the building. Doesn't matter. They're just whatever. They're just lesser. Imagine the military. Oh, wait, we already see that. We see the Russian army act like that. Subordinates are lesser creatures to be used, abused, and destroyed when needed. Because, hey, they're not people. They're just objects. That's authoritarianism. We see a lot of that, again, in corporate sectors. And the higher you go, the more extremes it tends to be. Now, this is one of the reasons why the abuse in authoritarian cycles and generations tends to be cyclical or generational, because parent ignores and abuses their child. The child grows up in an authoritarian household where there is no true empathy or love or decency. Maybe the child will have friends at school that do have empathy or have been raised in an authoritative parenting style, which allows communion and which puts the child first to help mitigate that rot that they've experienced at home. Authoritarian nature by its reality is highly demanding but not responsive, which again is another way of saying they're going to want everything from you, but they won't give you anything. Really, really, really big in corporate sectors. And hey, we have a political party that seems to be rife with that. So how do you spot an authoritarian? Ask an authoritarian for a favor and you will never get a yes. They will never give a yes, because authoritarians only believe in transactions. They'll make a deal with you, sure. They won't like you, they won't respect you, but they'll make a deal. So you can buy an authoritarian. Look at our government. Look how cheap some of these politicians are to buy. You can just buy them. Hey, here's $10,000. I want you to write that bill into law. Here's $10,000. I want you to vote no on that bill. Here's $13,000. I want you to fight and break those taxes. Hey, here's $52,000. Destroy those regulations for those rail lines. You can buy an authoritarian. They do not care. They don't operate off love or decency. Everything for them is transaction. So hey, if you're a girl and a boy comes up to you and says, well, if you love me, you do it, you got yourself an authoritarian. He's put a condition on something that should not have a condition on it, and he is engaging in a relationship with you at a transactional level. He does not treat you or understand or see you as an equal. There are no equals in the eyes of an authoritarian. There's only uppers and lowers. That's it.